Hi, I'm Robert. Welcome back to another on-the-road video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com. Stop. Before you begin any repair, unplug the appliance from the wall outlet. It is also recommended that you check for proper voltage. Remember to also turn off the water. Today we're working on the KitchenAid top load washer. Customer's complaint is that there's a grinding noise and the unit will not agitate or spin. We've determined that the motor coupler is bad. To begin this repair, we must first flip the console back. The tools required to complete this repair are a number 2 Phillips 5/16 drivers and a pair of pliers and a small flat blade driver. First, we'll need to remove the cabinet, starting by taking the number 2 Phillips screws out that hold the cabinet console down, or control console down. And then we will lift that up and out and roll it back. Next, we're going to unplug the lid switch Molex. And then we're going to take a tool. You can use a flat blade driver or any piece of metal that'll fit. And you're just going to pry the clip forward and it'll pop up. And we'll take that clip off. Repeat that process on the other side. And with the clips removed, we can now remove the entire cabinet from the machine by tipping it forward and then giving it a little wiggle. It'll slide right off of the washer. Now that the cabinet is removed, we have clear access to the motor and pump. We're going to start by removing the pump from the motor by removing the 2 clips that lock the pump onto the motor, by releasing them from the pump, giving it a half turn, and pulling them out of the motor. We'll set those aside. Next, we'll pull our pump straight off our motor shaft and kind of fold the hoses and just kind of let the pump rest against the frame. Now, I'm going to remove the single 5/16 screw from the side of the motor that holds the motor capacitor in place. That way, I don't have to unplug the capacitor. I can just let it lay with the wire harness when I unplug the motor Molex, which is what I'm doing next. Depress and pull. And then you have a 2-wire Molex here that also needs to be disengaged. Now we can remove the 2 5/16 screws that lock the motor mounting clamps in place. So we'll remove the upper. The lower. And now we're ready to remove the clamps. We're going to use one of our clips from the pump, and we're going to pop the motor mounting clip out of place on the bottom. And we'll just let that rest. And then the easiest way to get the upper out is to push up on the motor, and that'll release tension from it. And then you can just pull that right off the motor. And then you want to rotate it almost a half a turn so that you can remove it from its location in the motor mounting plate. And then bring the motor forward, and your motor is removed. Now that the motor is removed, we have clear access to the motor coupler, and we're going to remove that. The bushing simply pulls off, and then we'll pry the plastic part of the motor coupler off. Now to remove the other half of the motor coupler from the gear case shaft, sometimes this is easy because the inside of that portion of coupler will round out a bit. Sometimes it's in perfect condition, which makes it a little more difficult to get it off. So what we're going to do is we're going to grasp one of the fingers of that motor coupler with our pliers, and then we'll put our pump clip behind the back side of the coupler, and we'll help pry it with that clip. And your coupler is removed. Since the original design of the motor coupler, which is this one here, you can see where the manufacturer has gotten away from the round disc with the pin type fingers, and they've gone to the teardrop shaped fingers and a tripod kind of a design of the body of the coupler. So it makes it a little thicker, stronger, and it doesn't wear the bushing out as fast. Also, I'd like you to notice that they've added a metal sleeve into the motor coupler to slow the decay of the shape of the motor coupler fitting onto the shaft. Now that we have a new motor coupler, let's go ahead and install it. We're going to start by putting the fingers, the set of fingers on the motor. I'm going to put the finger section of the motor coupler on my driver handle. Fits nice and snug. And the reason I'm doing that is it's going to be a snug fit on the shaft, and you're going to want to tap it on with a tool, but you don't want to break the plastic fingers. So what you do is you rotate it until you feel it drop onto the shaft slightly, and then just take your pliers and tap it down until it seats, and then wiggle your driver handle out. You can see that your coupler is fully seated, and we're going to repeat that process on the gear case shaft. So, prep work, I've cleaned off the chewed up rubber from the old coupler bushing. Now I'm going to take my driver with the coupler on the end, and I'm going to bring it into the hole where the gear case shaft is and feel for it to slide on slightly. And then I'm going to finish it with my pliers. And then you can finish it off. And now we will take our bushing and we will fit the bushing onto the coupler fingers like so. And then what you want to do is you want to position your coupler to where you know the 3 holes are to receive the other set of fingers. So now we got to reinstall the bushings on the motor that came out with the motor. the two that remained on the mounting plate are on the bottom. So you want your two on the motor on the top. So what you're going to do is turn your motor. We're going to place our bushings on the motor so that when we rotate it that way, these are going to be on top. Now, what we're going to do, we want to rotate the coupler so that we have one teardrop pointing at the top in between the bushings. Now we're going to pick the motor up, and on an angle, we're going to get the two bottom pins of the motor into the bottom bushings. Just wiggle the motor a little bit, and you'll feel your fingers line up and go into the bushing. So now you want to take your upper clip and feed that into the slot in the mounting bracket. Once you get it in, rotate it around so that you can hook the front top of the motor, like so. Then you want to take your bottom clip and bring that up to the motor and press it in place. Now we can reinstall the screws that hold the clips on the motor. They are 5/16, one through the bottom clip and one through the top clip. Now we can reinstall our capacitor on the side of the motor. That's also a 5/16 screw. Next, we'll reconnect our two Molex plugs. You have a 2-wire here. It's keyed, so it only goes in one way. And your motor Molex, also keyed, and your motor is installed. Now we can reinstall the pump. You want to line up the flats of the shaft of the motor with the flats on the receiver of the pump. So we're at top and bottom here. It's easier to rotate the receiver to make sure that the flats are top and bottom on the pump, and then swing the pump over and wiggle the pump back on the shaft of the motor and reinstall your pump clips. They fit in the holes provided on the motor, dead center, top and bottom, and just pull out on the clip while pressing down, and it snaps in place. And your pump is installed. So now we're going to install the cabinet, and we're going to need to get the front lip of the cabinet underneath the lip of the frame. And it's easiest to open the lid and then slide it underneath. And then keep your foot against it, because on the base of each corner of the cabinet, there's a slot. And on the base of the frame in the back is a tab that's going to fit into the slot. And we're going to just push the side trim rails into the back. Once we get it seated, give it a good push down to make sure that it's all locked in. And then we're going to take our two clips and feed the tab of the clip into the slot on the back panel, and then put it down into the form-fitted holes and press. And repeat that process on the other side. Now we'll plug our Molex plug in for the lid switch, and then rotate the control console down and line up the hooks with the holes. and push it back. And we'll install our two number 2 Phillips screws. And that completes the repair. Thank you for watching another quality video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com.